how society tricks you into living a life that isn't yours. You wake up. The alarm goes off. You reach for your phone, scroll through notifications, maybe check your calendar, and step into the stream of another day. And already, without realizing it, you're participating in a life that may not be yours. You walk into the roles you've been assigned: student, employee, parent, citizen. You follow rules you didn't write, chase goals you never questioned, and live in rhythms that were set long before you ever had a choice. And here's the chilling part: you probably think this is normal. But what if it's not? What if the life you think is yours is actually a carefully constructed illusion, one designed not to liberate you, but to contain you? From the moment we're born, society starts shaping us, not out of malice, but out of momentum. We are born into systems, economic, cultural, ideological, that depend on our participation. And so, gradually, we are trained. We are not taught to ask, what do I truly want? But rather, what am I supposed to want? Think about that. We're handed desires like hand-me-down clothes. We're told to pursue success, but only in the way it's been defined for us. We're told to value security, but only if it keeps us compliant. And the most dangerous part: this conditioning doesn't feel like control, it feels like common sense.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let's go deeper. Imagine a child drawing. They're free, spontaneous, expressive. They're not worried about technique or approval. But fast forward a few years, and now that same child hesitates before they draw. They worry about being good at it. They compare themselves. They start censoring themselves. Why? Because they've internalized standards. They've been taught to evaluate themselves through someone else's lens. That's what society does to all of us. It replaces authenticity with performance. We stop asking, what is true, and start asking, what is acceptable? This is not just about art or hobbies. It's about your entire identity. Who told you what kind of person you should be? Where did your definition of success come from? If you trace it back, you'll often find it didn't come from you. It came from a parent, a teacher, a brand, an influencer, a trend. We are bombarded with ideals, images of the perfect body, the perfect lifestyle, the perfect career, and we internalize them without consent. We mistake exposure for truth. But truth doesn't shout, it whispers, and most of us are too busy performing to hear it. Now here's where it gets even more subtle. Society doesn't just tell you what to want, it convinces you that you came up with it yourself. That's the genius of it. You think you're choosing, but you're really selecting from a narrow menu of pre-approved options. You think you're rebelling, but even your rebellion has been commodified. You buy the clothes, the lifestyle, the identity that says, I'm different, but you're still playing the game, still feeding the machine. And deep down you feel it, that quiet discomfort, that low-frequency hum of dissatisfaction that no promotion, no possession, no praise can silence. You feel it when you're alone. You feel it in the morning, before the noise starts. You feel it when you pause long enough to ask, is this it? And if you've ever asked that question, even silently, you've touched the edge of something sacred, your real self, trying to get your attention. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But society is not built to support that journey. It's built to make you useful, productive, predictable. So if you want to become who you truly are, you must be willing to disappoint the world. You must be willing to walk away from the scripts, the roles, the expectations. And that's terrifying. But what's more terrifying is the alternative, a life lived entirely in costume, a soul buried under 1,000 shoulds. Let me ask you something dangerous. If no one could see you, if there was no audience, no judgment, no reward, how would you live? Who would you be? Most of us don't know. We've spent so long performing that we've forgotten how to just be. But that question, that terrifying, liberating question, is the beginning of freedom. So what do? We begin by paying attention. By noticing the moments when we're performing instead of living, when we're choosing out of fear instead of love, when we're chasing a dream that doesn't feel alive inside us. We start small by saying no when we mean no, by creating without needing approval, by sitting in silence long enough to hear our own voice again. This isn't about rejecting society. It's about reclaiming yourself within it. Because the truth is, society isn't some evil monster. It's a mirror. It reflects what we reinforce. And when enough of us wake up, when enough of us stop pretending, the mirror begins to change. So here's the real question. Do you want to keep living the life that was handed to you, or do you want to live the life that's trying to emerge from within you? The silent curriculum, how you were trained to conform without realizing it. Most people assume that education is about learning facts, acquiring skills, and preparing for life. But what if I told you that the most important lessons you were taught in school had nothing to do with math, science, or literature, and everything to do with obedience, conformity, and silence? What if the real curriculum wasn't written on the chalkboard, but embedded in the structure itself? This is the silent curriculum, the unspoken set of lessons that shape our beliefs about authority, identity, and value. And it starts earlier than most of us ever realize. From the first day of kindergarten, we are trained to raise our hands for permission, to sit still, to speak only when called upon, to follow instructions written by someone else. We are rewarded not for originality, but for compliance. Not for questioning, but for memorizing. And in this environment, something subtle but devastating begins to happen. We learn to disconnect from our inner voice. We learn that our curiosity is less important than the correct answer, that our feelings are less important than the rules, that our worth is measured in grades, not in presence, not in awareness, not in the depth of our questions. This is how conformity is installed, not through force, but through repetition, and through the normalization of silence. You're taught to do what's expected, not what's true, to aim for approval, not authenticity. And over time, this conditioning becomes invisible. You don't even realize it's happening. You just feel a quiet pressure to succeed in ways that have already been defined for you, and to fit in, to stay within the lines. But here's the dangerous irony. We call this preparation for real life. But what kind of life are we preparing for? One where we follow orders, one where we suppress our instincts, one where we climb ladders we didn't build, chasing rewards we didn't choose. If the goal of education is to awaken the individual, then why does it so often produce people who are afraid to think for themselves? You were trained to conform without realizing it, and the training didn't end with school. It continued in the workplace, in media, in social media algorithms designed to give you more of what you already believe. You were taught that success means upward mobility, that intelligence means being quick with facts, not deep with insight, but that confidence means speaking louder, not listening more deeply. And underneath it all, you were taught that your worth is conditional on performance, on productivity, on being who others expect you to be. But what if that's not true? What if your value has nothing to do with your output? What if the most important parts of you are the ones that were never graded, never praised, never even noticed by the system? Think about it. Your imagination, your intuition, your ability to feel deeply, to dream wildly. When were you ever rewarded for those? When were you ever told that those were your superpowers? This is the cost of the silent curriculum. We grow up believing that the truest parts of ourselves are liabilities. We hide them, we bury them, we call them childish or unrealistic. And then we wonder why we feel disconnected, why we feel hollow even when we've done everything right. It's because we've been taught to value the outer world more than the inner one, to seek validation instead of alignment, to be good instead of being whole. So let me ask you a question you may have never been asked. What parts of yourself did you have to abandon to be accepted? And are you willing to reclaim them now? Because the truth is, you can't live a life that's truly yours until you unlearn the life you were trained to live. That means questioning the metrics you use to judge yourself. It means redefining what success means. It means giving yourself permission to be wrong, to be messy, to be in process. Well, to feel your way forward instead of always trying to think your way out. And it takes courage. Because when you stop conforming, you will be misunderstood. People will question you. You might even question yourself. But that discomfort is the sign that you're waking up, that you're stepping out of the story you were given and into the story you were born to write. You were not made to fit in. You were made to wake up and to remember, to return to the wisdom that lives in your bones, your breath, your being. The mask of achievement. Why success is often the disguise for a life of quiet desperation. We live in a world where success is worshipped like a god. It's the golden badge we all chase, the finish line everyone seems to be running toward. But what if the version of success we've been taught to pursue is actually a masked one that hides our disconnection, our anxiety, our quiet desperation? What if behind the polished resumes, the curated social media profiles, the corner offices and big houses, there lies a hollow space, a space where the soul is supposed to live, but no longer does? Achievement is seductive because it gives us the illusion of control. It allows us to believe we're doing the right thing, that we're progressing, that we're winning. But progress toward what? Winning what game? So many of us spend our lives climbing ladders without ever asking if the ladder is leaning against the right wall. We chase titles, awards, admiration and validation, believing that with enough external success, the inner emptiness will disappear. But it doesn't. It just gets buried deeper. And the more you succeed, the harder it becomes to admit that you feel lost. That's the cruel paradox. The more successful you appear to others, the less permission you feel to question the path you're on. You become trapped in the very identity you worked so hard to create. You can't slow down because people expect you to keep rising. You can't change direction because you've built your whole life on this trajectory. And so you keep moving faster, higher, louder, hoping that eventually you'll arrive at peace, But peace never comes from achievement. It comes from alignment. Think about that word, alignment. It means being in harmony with your inner truth, not just your outer image. It means your actions reflect your values, your work reflects your purpose, your life reflects your essence. And most importantly, it means you are no longer performing. You are living. But alignment is dangerous to the system. Because aligned people don't buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like. They don't work jobs that drain them just to maintain appearances. They don't measure their worth by their productivity. And so, the system has to sell us something else: ambition, status, prestige. We're told that the higher we go, the happier we'll be. But all too often, we reach the summit and realize we've been climbing someone else's mountain. So let me ask you a question that could unravel everything. If you didn't care what anyone else thought of you, what would you still choose to do with your life? Would you keep the same job? Live in the same place? Maintain the same routines? Or would you burn it all down and begin again, slower, simpler, truer? This isn't about rejecting success. It's about redefining it. Real success isn't about being admired for who you pretend to be, it's about being at peace with who you are. It's about waking up in the morning and not needing to justify your existence. It's about being able to sit in silence without feeling like you're falling behind. Because the truth is, the life you think you want might just be the life you were told to want. And until you question it, you'll keep chasing illusions, wearing the mask, performing the role, living the script. The Pathless Way, how to remember who you are and reclaim a life that belongs to you. There comes a moment, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once, when the noise begins to crack. The applause doesn't echo the way it used to. The goals you hit don't satisfy like they promised. And in the silence between achievements, between roles, between routines, you hear something ancient stirring inside of you. A question, a remembering. Not of the life you've built, but of the life you were meant to live before the world began shaping you. That's the doorway to the Pathless Way. And the Pathless Way is not a road you walk, it's the act of returning to yourself. To reclaim a life that belongs to you, you first have to admit how much of your current life does not. That takes brutal honesty. It takes looking at your choices, your career, your relationships, your values, and asking, did I choose this out of love or out of fear, out of freedom or out of habit? Most people avoid these questions because the answers are inconvenient. They threaten the comfort of certainty. But without these questions, you can't begin the work of remembering who you are beneath the layers. This is not a journey with a map. There are no 5-year plans for the soul, no guaranteed outcomes or perfect timelines. But that's why it's called the Pathless Way. You don't follow it, you surrender to it. You listen, you feel, you pay attention. You start to notice what makes you come alive, not in the fleeting way that dopamine does, but in the quiet, steady way that meaning does. You begin to honor your intuition, even when it doesn't make logical sense. You make space for stillness, for solitude, for the slow unfolding of self-truth. To walk the Pathless Way means you stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what is true for me? It means you stop outsourcing your authority to systems and start taking radical responsibility for your own becoming. You don't chase purpose, you cultivate presence. You don't follow trends, you follow resonance. And yes, this path will cost you. It will cost you your false self, your comfort zones, your borrowed identities. But what you gain is priceless, your own life, lived from the inside out. A life that doesn't need to be impressive because it is deeply real. A life that doesn't need to be perfect because it is fully yours. So let me leave you with this. What if the greatest act of rebellion isn't to fight the system, but to no longer let it define you? What if the real revolution is remembering who you were before the world told you who to be? Because in the end, the most dangerous thing you can do in a society built on conformity is to live authentically. And the most radical thing you can become is yourself.